What is up, YouTube? It's CS back here with another installment, and here is my predictions video for UFC Live, Hardy versus Lytle, or UFC on versus 5, whatever you want to call it. Alright, now first off, before I get on with any picks, I do have this to give away. UFC Ultimate Hoist Gracie. The winner of my contest was Trey 420 Howard, so he will be receiving this in the mail shortly. Of course, he got this because he was subscribed and he commented on my UFC 133 picks video and said that Rashad Evans was going to win via TKO of round 2. So it's that easy for my contest. Just be subscribed and tell me who you think is going to win and be right. So he was right and he was eligible to win that. So congrats to Trey 420 Howard. Unfortunately, I will not be doing a contest for this card. I'm going to save my contest prizes for, the bigger cards, the pay-per-views. This one, not so much because it's free, and honestly, I'm not entirely excited for it. Maybe if I was, I would, but I'm going to save these things for the cards I'm excited about, which are probably going to be pay-per-views. But let's get on to predictions, shall we? Now, of course, it's a free card. This card looks like a free card, at least the preliminary card does. The main card, which includes 4 fights, if they had a tad bitter of a main event or, a good main event, this would be pay-per-view-like, in my opinion. Of course, Hardy versus Lytle, to me, is not much of a main event. Both guys are coming off losses. Dan Hardy coming off 3, and in my opinion, he should have been cut after the Anthony Johnson fight. I love Dan Hardy, personally. He's a good guy. The guy follows me on Twitter and everything. But right now, he's just not UFC material, not well-rounded enough. And, he's pretty much one-dimensional. The guy's a brawler. And the thing is, he can't even apply that into his mixed martial arts repertoire very well, because dudes are just going to plain out grapple or out wrestle him. And we saw that from Anthony Johnson, who was coming off 15 months layoff or something stupid like that. And he was still able to do what he did, shake off that ring rust and get an easy win over Dan Hardy. So that's saying a lot about Dan Hardy in a bad way. So for him to be headlining this card, I'm not much of a fan of. I'd honestly rather see Oliveira or Cerrone headline that, but even more Ben Henderson and Jim Miller. I think those guys have earned it. Ben Henderson, former world champion, and Jim Miller, who's only lost to 1 and 2 ever in the world. I think those guys deserve a lot more respect than just co-headlining against guys who are coming off losses. And again, Dan Hardy's 3. But moving on, let's take a look at the first fight of the night. This one's between welterweights Duane Ludwig and Amir Sadollah. Now, this fight was supposed to be taking place, almost a year ago? I don't know. It's been a while since this was supposed to be taking place. It's been rescheduled, 2 or 3 times. Now both guys are finally healthy. This shit's actually going to go down this Saturday. Hopefully they throw on a show. For the most part, both guys are pretty exciting fighters. Duane Ludwig, we know about his kickboxing background. Serious power in his hands, pretty technical striker. But that's all he has against Amir Sadollah. Amir is too well-rounded, and he should find a way to win this. And for the most part, he should be able to hang with Duane Ludwig on the feet. Since his time on The Ultimate Fighter, his striking has gradually progressed to the point where it was one of his strengths. And we saw that in the Marcus Johnson fight. Of course, that led to him, out-grappling Johnson into, a point where he submitted him via elbows. Those elbows were nasty. And DeMarcus Johnson, is a decent submission grappler, and he's a better submission grappler than Duane Ludwig. And if Duane Ludwig finds himself on the ground with Amir, he's definitely in trouble. Now, on the feet, of course, I said he has a puncher's chance, but I think Amir is the more aggressive fighter. I'm not sure if Duane is going to be able to, counterfight correctly. I'm not sure how well of a counterpuncher he's going to look against Amir. Amir is going to be pressing forward, and I just don't see Duane being able to let his hands fly as well as he should, due to the fact that Amir has that submission background. And I think Duane's going to be wary for takedowns or clinch attempts. And I just think that Amir is going to edge out the striking and eventually find his way onto the ground. And that's where he works for TKO over Duane Ludwig. So that is my pick. Amir Sadollah via TKO. I'm going to say elbows and punches in round 2. Now moving on. next fight of the night between lightweights Charles Oliveira and Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Really excited for this fight. This should be exciting wherever it takes place, whether it's on the ground or, on the feet. Don't exactly see much clinch work here. Both guys like to, slug it out on the feet, and both guys are submission grapplers. I don't see this fight getting very, sloppy or grimy or dirty. So, on the feet, I'll give the edge to Don Cerrone. Serious leg kicks, pretty technical striker. Not the best defensive striker in my opinion. Not the best defensive fighter in my opinion. So I can definitely see an aggressive fighter like Charles Oliveira, come forward and just hurt Donald Cerrone because he doesn't like to get pressured. On the ground, Cerrone gives up the edge in grappling to Oliveira. In my opinion, Oliveira is a lot more fluid there. I think he has more finishing potential on the ground. I just think he's overall better on the ground. Cerrone's no slouch as a submission grappler, but there he's not a very defensive fighter. Again, he's not a very defensive fighter, especially on the ground. Got caught early with that guillotine against Ben Henderson in their second fight. I just really don't like his chances if it hits the ground. But for the most part, I think the guys at Jackson's are going to figure out a way to just keep this a kickboxing match and have Donald Cerrone just edge this over Charles Oliveira. Oliveira is a great fighter, and for the most part, if he loses Donald Cerrone, this does not hurt his career in my opinion. But I just don't think Cerrone loses this fight if it's just on the feet. Cerrone's a tough dude. I don't think he's ever been finished by TKO. I can't see it happening here. I know he's never finished someone by TKO or KO ever, but for the most part, I respect his power. I think he's pretty technical again, and I just think he's going to do okay against the onslaught that is Charles Oliveira and grind this out to a 29-28 decision. That is my pick. Donald Cerrone to slightly outbox Oliveira in a 29-28 decision. Alright, y'all, now moving on. Wow, hardest fight on the whole card for me to call. It's between Jim Miller and Ben Henderson in lightweight. The fight I thought should have been headlining this card. Holy crap, who do you go with? A lot of dudes, when it comes to this situation, just flip a coin and just pick, a dude, who represented that side of the coin. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give my best educated opinion possible, and if you don't like it, sorry. But yeah, I am going to go with Ben Henderson here. I know Jim Miller's only lost to 1-2 ever, but I just see Ben Henderson being the better overall athlete. I think he's the stronger of the two. I think he's the faster of the two as well. I think he's a very good defensive wrestler. We saw that in the Bocek fight. And I think he's, the better technical striker. And I think he hits a little harder. Jim Miller, I'd probably give him the aggression advantage. And I think he's a better submission grappler, slightly better submission grappler. His pace is relentless. For some reason, Bocek was able to handle him and not Ben Henderson. And Jim Miller's only lost to 1-2 ever in the world, and I thought he lost that Bocek fight. And then Ben Henderson handled him, accordingly. For me, I just have to go with Jim Miller. I mean, with Ben Henderson, I just think that if he displays a certain, percentage of, aggression, I think he wins this fight. I think he's going to want to keep this on the feet, and I think he'll do a good part of, just defensive wrestling and just keeping this thing on the feet, being a better technical striker, land heavy, counter punch, and just catch Jim Miller when he's coming in. I think Jim Miller's going to want to get this to the ground, put Ben Henderson on his back. Although Ben Henderson has a deadly guillotine, for the most part, I do think he's weakest off his back. So, what can I say? That's what Jim Miller's going to want to try to do, in my opinion. But I just don't see him doing that over the course of 3 rounds. Also, I do not see any of these guys finishing each other. Both these guys are too tough and too savvy to, to land in those type of stupid positions. So I think this is going the distance. But again, I gotta go with Ben Henderson to, sprawl and brawl against Jim Miller and just get better of the striking there for 3 rounds. So that's my pick. Ben Henderson via unanimous decision, 29-28. Alrighty, yo. Now, moving on. Main event pick right here. Dan Hardy, Chris Lytle. what can I say? Happy trails, Dan Hardy. This will be your last fight in UFC. You are going to lose this fight. You know, dude, I like you. You know, I have you on Twitter. You follow me. You're a cool dude. You're pretty amiable with the fans and the media. Pretty marketable guy. Yeah, I'm a fan of yours. Personally. But as a fighter, I don't think you're that good. You know what I'm saying? You're way too one-dimensional, and it just shows in your fights, especially in your last one, where dude was off for like a month and a year, and then he beats you. You know what I'm saying? It's with wrestling, and I thought you'd improve that, and you didn't. So, what makes me think that you're going to improve your, grappling or submission grappling here? I just don't think it's going to happen. Dan Hardy is in for a rough surprise if he thinks Chris Lytle is going to, kickbox him for 3 rounds. I just don't see that happening as much as Chris Lytle likes to exchange. I just see that Chris Lytle will eventually just feel like being well-rounded and just somehow take this to the ground and submit Dan Hardy. I just cannot see Chris Lytle just brawling for 3 rounds and trying to save Dan Hardy's career. I really think that Dan Hardy's done after this, and I think Chris Lytle is going to win an emphatic submission here. I just think that they're going to be pretty, loose on the feet, landing combo after combo against each other. Eventually, Chris Lytle finds himself at the cage of Dan Hardy. This is where I think he's better in the clinch. I think he's going to dirty box him there. Eventually find himself on top of Dan Hardy when he takes him down to the ground. And that's where I think he submits him via rear naked choke. So that's my pick. Chris Lytle, rear naked choke over Dan Hardy in round 2. Alrighty, now that about does it for my picks. Hope you guys enjoyed them. Hope you guys enjoy this upcoming card, UFC on versus 5. Not exactly looking forward to the preliminary card, like I said, but this main card looks pretty exciting. Although I still wish Jim Miller and Ben Henderson were headlining this shit. Tough luck, what can I say? But yeah, who knows? Main event, hopefully that's exciting. We'll see. Give me your thoughts as always in the comment section below. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and please rate. Also, if you have Tumblr, Twitter, or Facebook, hit me up there. I guess that about does it for me. And I guess you'll see me for a review maybe, or my predictions for UFC 134 the next time you see me do an MMA video. So again, thank you for all the support, and take care.